The floor is yours.
Good evening, everybody. Hello, hello. How good is your English? Is anybody sort of not very good at English? I can talk very quickly, so if anybody does find me speaking too fast, it's okay if you go like this. I will make my best. So my name is Mark Turrell. I'll give you a little bit about my background before we go into the talk. When I was 24 years old, 23, I started doing a PhD in computer science, information management. Now I did a PhD because my girlfriend wanted to do a PhD, and I was too lazy to go work. There were no startups in those days. I then was very fortunate to meet the general manager of Intel on my first day of doing the PhD. And the general manager of Intel wanted my professor, and now me as his new research assistant, to do research on how people use computers to work together. So groupware, intranets, all the things that is completely normal today. I ended up being one of the pioneers to do this over in Europe. This is the age of 23, 24. I then created a software company. I left Intel and I realized that the only big company I would ever work for is my own. And then I set up my own company then around 25, 26. I also did not finish my PhD. Some of you already begin to see some entrepreneurial things from yourselves, but for me, I was 2 years into my PhD, and I'd proven the theory about how technology spreads. And I told my professor that this PhD was a purely academic interest. He said, well, a PhD is only academic interest. So I said, no, I don't understand what you're talking about. And I was fed up of being a poor student. So I turned my PhD thesis into a book, and I sold 1,000 copies of my book for 150 euros each at the age of 26. And I was making more money than my professor. Entrepreneur. How many of you just get a feel like entrepreneurs? Few of you?
Well, we wouldn't be here, right?
Well, you might. It's a bar, isn't it? It really does look like a bar. I won't say anymore. I took my first company public on the London Stock Exchange. I did an IPO, and that meant that I went from being worth minus 200,000 euros to being, at the time, my peak was 11 million euros. It's like not working for 1,000 years. So, and in fact, I'm much more sort of enlightened about the path, about doing really great things, but I do remember just after my company went public, and my bank balance had a nice number in it, and I was worth an even bigger number, I remember having 15 minutes to run through Heathrow Airport to catch an airplane to go to my office in Boston. I decided to buy a watch. I picked the first one, an Aston Martin watch, that's nice, bought it, 10,000 euros, ridiculous. And then I immediately broke it, because it was dark and I was fiddling with it. And when I went to go back, the watch company persuaded me that it wasn't broken, it was meant to rattle badly. And while I was waiting for that explanation, I bought another stupid watch. And then, as a final piece of that, I began to have huge problems with my hands, typing and writing, and I realized that all of these man bracelets that you see are really bad for writing and doing practical stuff. But part of this, the reason why I'm just explaining that, is just going to sort of give you some empathy to say, I've been down the path of being an entrepreneur. I've had many, many bad times, many, many setbacks. Fortunately, more good times than bad. But it is very difficult going down the path of entrepreneurship. And hopefully you can see that I can sort of connect with you guys to help share some tips, some tactics on how you can be more successful. Ideally, you can avoid some of the mistakes that I made very, very early on. But maybe there are some things that can accelerate you sort of coming up with, let's say, wouldn't it be great if somebody here was Bosnia's Skype? Because after all, 10 years ago, nobody thought that Estonia would have $1 billion company. Nobody. And even now, if I look inside of, if you look at Budapest, I live in Berlin. Berlin had nothing 6 or 7 years ago. They had great techno. Who's been to Berlin? Who here can remember being in Berlin? Berlin had the average amount of capital going into Berlin every year for about a decade was about 60 million euros up until 6 years ago. And it began to climb up a little bit. In the first 6 months of this year, there's been about 1.5 billion euros going into the Berlin economy. Berlin had fuck all 6 years ago. But we'll find as we talk about some of these things about scaling, sometimes it just takes a small number of people to get going, really be very, very persistent, find a good scaling tactic, and that can actually help scale not just their businesses, but the whole ecosystem around them. So with that, I'm going to give you a talk on scaling specifically. But I'd like to find out, first of all, who here would like to get whatever they want?
Everybody.
Okay, chuckle. Why? Why? You have to be very careful what you want. You're very, very careful. Okay, so first of all, I urge you all strongly to be very careful what you wish for. I was speaking recently, doing a talk like this in Prague to a bunch of entrepreneurs, and there was one young entrepreneur who wanted to create 10 startups. And he was doing this for 3 years, and he'd only got 4 companies, and he was struggling to get the rest. Well, I said, well, you're an idiot. Because I can achieve your lifetime's goal for you this afternoon. I said, how can I do that? Well, that's easy. You go online, you click create company, click, 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 spend 600 euros, and you created all your companies. If your definition of success is creating companies, that's an easy thing to do. You need to really think through your end goal. So we'll talk about end goals a little bit more. But so now, if you have an end goal, I'll share with you my current end goal. I would like to be worth 50 million euros in 5 years' time, with 5 million in the bank. I was worth 11 million beforehand, so it's not going to be, of course it's hard and it's challenging. What's very interesting is that having that end goal immediately concentrates your mind. So there are 3 ways to get whatever you want, and that first one is to know what it is that you want, and to sanity check it. The second thing is to give yourself a time frame. So I tend to use birthdays as my time frame, because I know it's going to come. You shouldn't have time frames that are too aggressive, otherwise you will just get stressed. But if you don't know where you're going, and if you don't know when you need to get there, how are you supposed to know how fast to go? How are you supposed to know how much effort to put into it? So those are the first 2 things. But the third thing is the surprising thing. And this will show you that as we look at scaling, there's a lot of surprising ways that can really help us these days. The third thing that helps us get whatever we want is to tell as many people as possible what it is that we want. Because it's actually in the world of abundance that everything becomes possible. Now, some of you might be a bit skeptical now, so I'm going to give you all a math question, if that's okay. So, if there are 30 people in a room, so we're a little bit more, but imagine 30 people in a room, what is the percentage likelihood that 2 or more people share a birthday, a day, and month? So how many people think a small number? Let's say 5% or less. 5 to 10%? 10 to 25? 25 to 50? Anybody more than 50?
I think so.
Well, let's say more than 50.
More than 50.
Yes, birthday paradox.
Paradox.
So what is the correct answer?
Actually, I don't know.
Quickly.
I know for a room of 50 people that it's about 90%.
Yes.
93 people.
Yes, and at 30, it's 71%. So all of you people that thought it was very, very rare are completely and utterly wrong. Now, I'm going to demonstrate this in a way that some of you will think I'm correct. So my birthday is the 3rd of March. Anybody here 3rd of March? When is your birthday?
14th of June.
14th of June? Anybody here 14th? Okay, that was quick. The reason why it works, and this is why telling people what you want allows you to get whatever you want. In our heads, we're egotistical. We think, what are the odds of somebody matching my date? It's the wrong mathematics. We're looking at the odds of any match. 2 people matching against 28, 3 against 27. In the world of abundance, which is the world that we're living in today, everything is possible. Maybe 20 years ago, you had, 2 television channels and there's 1 telephone being shared. But now you've got access to everything. So right now, we're living in a world of abundance, and in this world of abundance, you can get whatever you want. And then the final thing, just to reinforce this, just in case you really haven't got that the rules of the game are different. I like a story about Professor Einstein. So Einstein used to teach undergraduate physics at Princeton University. When his second year students, when they would go into the examination hall, in front of them would be last year's questions. Eventually one student is very surprised. They're like, hang on, Professor Einstein, you've made a mistake, you've given us last year's questions. Einstein would just smile and say, well, whilst it's true that I've given you last year's questions, this year, the answers are all different. It has never been easier to scale a business from anywhere on the planet. Never been easier. So I want this to sort of get across for this. You won't have to be successful, you don't have to move. You might have to do a little bit, but okay. So all I'm going to describe, I became fascinated by how things spread. How do you spread ideas? How do you spread behavior change? How do you spread products and services? But then there's a very specific version of spread I became fascinated by, and that is scaling. How do you get a huge result by doing small, smart moves, aided by good fortune? Now, in my books, I've got a scaling book, and we'll go through some scaling workshop. I actually did a scaling case study of the fall of the Berlin Wall, which was an amazing experience, but it pretty much happened in a 24-hour period, and nobody knew what the hell was going on. But in this 24-hour period, with a mistaken interpretation of a press conference material, pretty much within 3 hours the wall was down. Very weird. But that was an accident. So what I would like to get across now is I'm going to be sharing with you from a different case study about some of the tactics that we can have to then actually sort of scale businesses. Now, let me see. The world's close to call it one of the world's best-selling books. Sold 100 million copies in 2 years. What should that be? Actually, the Bible took 450 years to write. And then they had to write it by hand. Yes, some people, it's amazing. I've done this talk. One of the few conferences that I've been to where somebody remembers the title of the talk. In Riga, Latvia, the talk's called 50 Shades of Scaling, and they go, Twilight? No.
Mr. Gray?
Yeah. 50 Shades. How many people admit to have read the book? Seen the movie?
I see. Yeah.
How many times did you see the movie?
Lots.
One of my San Francisco friends, a guy, has seen the movie 7 times.
Whoa.
7 different
You
movies.
guys are so smart. I've done this as an exercise for 10 minutes and nobody gets it. He gets it immediately. And the answer was 7 different women.
Experience.
It's the perspective. There are married guys here.
Yes.
We lose that job.
The marriage is nothing. I actually do. Normally when I give talks, I give 2 talks. I give one talk on scaling, I give another talk on relationships and open relationships. But I wasn't. Apparently you guys are way too square to do that kind of stuff.
Ouch.
Later then. I keep trying later.
Save that half an hour for networking.
Exactly, we'll say for networking. So, 50 Shades of Grey. 50 Shades of Grey is an incredibly good scaling case study, and there are lessons that you can learn for your businesses. We will not be reading any chapters of the book, do not worry, because it's basically unreadable. And yet it didn't stop it selling 100 million plus copies. So let's look. Erica Leonard is the author, so she'd never written anything before. This is kind of obvious. But what why don't you take my call? So, over Christmas, she was given Twilight. So this is Christmas 2008, something like that. So she was given Twilight because Twilight was the #1 best-selling book, a power law where one book sells so much more than everything else. When she was reading the book, she decided that she would create her own fan fiction. So like an homage to the characters. Now, there's different types of fan fiction. So some people might imagine Harry Potter. And then think about, well, what happens to Ron Weasley 3 years later? That's one type. There's another type called alternate universe, and in this case, this is what she did. She decided to put Edward and Bella in an office romance with whips and chains. In fact, this place probably does have a sex dungeon, isn't it? Where's the bedroom of this place? So you have 360-degree evaluations. So, now, by the way, at this point, so if you haven't read 50 Shades of Grey, it's an office romance with whips and chains. Now, at this point, some of you may be thinking, well, it's obvious why 50 Shades of Grey was so successful. It was a book about sex. Well, up until her book, the next best-selling sex book ever had sold 1 million copies. So it was not the content that made it spread, it was something other than the content. And the writing was crap. So, because of this power law of Twilight, she began to write off a platform, a pre-existing platform. It's like if you were developing things based off Slack right now, you'd be developing off another person's platform. So she thought lots of people like Twilight, and she began to write for Twilight fiction, for Twilight fiction authors. And there are millions of people that like reading that stuff. About 6 months after writing, she discovered fan fiction websites, fanfic.net and Twilighted. These are places where authors share their content for free, and you can vote and comment on them. Well, this meant that she was able to tap into the power of the crowd very quickly. So almost instantly, she became a top 10 chapter, because it's about sex. That did kind of get there. But then she was able to use the crowd. So for example, like in your software, and even in fact if you have like more traditional businesses like bars and restaurants, we quite often have beta users. Well, she had beta readers. People that were reading the book and adding comments. For example, so she'd never been to America beforehand, but she had readers living in Seattle who would then say, no, they'd never go to a Starbucks, they go to this type of restaurant or place instead. So she was able to take advantage of the crowd all over the world. One of my the people that I've been mentoring is like a local guy, and so they've been able to get 40 city ambassadors pretty much within a week, still sitting in Tallinn, Estonia, by tapping out to everybody across the world the power of the crowd. The power of the crowd also gave 50 Shades of Grey its iconic title. In chapter 16, now I've only read to chapter 12 because it's unreadable, but in chapter 16, just skip ahead to, it says Anna wants to stroke her new lover, and he says, don't touch me because I'm 50 shades of fucked up. The fans loved it, according to the Crowd Power site, which meant she keeps repeating it over and over again, because that's what she does. Well, originally her title of the book was called Master of the Universe. And when it came time for her to pull it off the internet to then actually publish it for money, basically the title had been gifted to her by the crowd. So, power of the crowd. Next one as a tactic is synchronize. She had not finished writing the book, but she needed to get in the habit of finishing off the book, so every single week she would publish another chapter for free on the internet. Well, this meant that her fans began to become synchronized. And I've been reading through the Facebook chats and these things. She's going to go on holiday for a week. Is there a chapter? People are getting really frantic about it. What it meant was that, and so at this point then, she had 110 chapters producing, another one, another one, another one. It also meant that her content had to be very exciting to keep people on the hook, just like a TV soap opera. Always exciting. Now there's the notion about getting lucky. Now, actually, before I tell you about her story, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Mark's story. So, remember, I was doing a PhD, because the girlfriend wanted to do a PhD. I was working for Intel. A few weeks after that, my professor had been invited to go to a conference. And this was a conference of 600 people in London, and my professor was going to be on stage. I decided, at then 23, that I would take advantage of this opportunity, and I thoroughly recommend you all could do the same. I bought myself, in this case, a bright red jacket. I sat right at the front, and I asked the first question. Hi, my name is Mark Turrell, doing my PhD at Cass Business School, and I'm working for Intel Europe on their groupware project. My question is blah, blah, blah. Thank you. Everybody saw me, because I was wearing a bright red jacket. My professor then invited me to go on stage with him afterwards, Just as I was then leaving, there were these two big Dutch guys. Done. Not eating enough cheese. I like cheese. And it turns out it was the Chief Information Officer of Shell and the Chief Information Officer of Philips who said, "You like your stuff so much, can you do what you've done for Intel for me?" And I made an extra 40,000 sterling at 24. Getting lucky takes effort. Don't wait for luck to happen, make the luck. Now in her case, 50 Shades of Grey, the luck that happened for her was that there were three mothers who wanted to raise money for a children's charity. And this children's charity, you would pretty much offer to give money for one of your favourite fan fiction authors to make an outtake chapter, like a spare chapter. This charity in 3 weeks raised $80,000 online, and her single chapter alone raised $30,000. At this point, she's doing everything for free. She's got 110 chapters of crap. But now people are willing to pay 30 grand for a single chapter. Ding! So now she's been able to take advantage, and what she did with that is she took the book off the internet for free, annoying some readers, but very, very quickly did a deal with the Writers Cafe from Australia, who were able to make an ebook version and a print-on-demand version. Take advantage of the opportunity. Now this is another thing. One of the things that, I will urge you to sort of build up a plan by design. 50 Shades of Grey actually did about 16 perfect things. And we said every single thing that she did was the right thing to do at the right time. So much so that the woman who came in second, who followed her exactly, she made $6 million from her book. So it's the person who came in third got nothing. So, but there was one thing that was really curious. So she's the pioneer, one of the pioneers of virtual book tools. But there was an interesting logic, and this is, if you like, there's this entrepreneurial logic that exists. Sometimes you have no choice. And hopefully, when you have no choice, the no choice that you're left with is genius. So in her case, let's look at what it meant for her. So in her case, she did a book deal with the Writers Cafe. She had the book was coming out in like 2 weeks' time. Well, normally it takes between 6 months and 18 months to plan a book launch. And there's budget, and you go around. Well, because it was only a 2-week cycle, because she was taking advantage of new technology, this meant that she had to do everything in 2 weeks with zero budget. There was only one way of doing it, and that was to target the hubs, the network hubs for people in the publishing industry. Goodreads and other websites like that, where she was the guest blogger for a week. So within 1 week, without leaving her home in London, she was able to cover 11 of the hubs, like the centralizing places where everybody goes to for new book information. That meant that one of the hub readers was this Devilicious Moms. How many of you know Desperate Housewives? Yeah, see, you guys have... I did not mean the TV show. You guys had wine earlier, or rakia, whatever it is. So this woman runs basically the website targeting Desperate Housewives. In Connecticut, she read the book, loved it, got Eric Leonard to come to New York. In fact, there's a news report where 200 people, mostly women, were invited to a book signing, and the day afterwards, her book was selling for $700 on eBay as a signed copy. Because of that audience, that hub audience, she was able to get access to Random House, and a couple of weeks after that, she signed a 7-figure book deal with Random House, their vintage book subsidiary, to then go into mainstream. So now she sold 250,000 copies with the independent publisher. Now she's getting the big boys, the mainstream people in. She was able to already catch the wave. So, ebooks. So right now, more than half the copies of 50 Shades of Grey in the United Kingdom are sold on ebooks, Kindle. Which means that you can be looking at the BBC website, your news, hardcore pornography, and nobody would notice. Apart from maybe a smile on your face, or a grimace if you're a man reading it. But what she did, and this, by the way, the important point here is that when you're looking at your startups or your companies, you don't have to release energy, you don't have to unleash a wave. It happens very rarely and it takes effort. What you can do is you can wait and catch a wave that somebody else has created. So you just pretty much wait until the right news story comes, there's always the right news one, and just basically jump on the wave, which he did. Now a couple of ones with this one. So one first issue is then amplifiers. So not everybody is equal within the world. So if you're the editor of the New York Times and you write a story, you're clearly much more interesting than, let's say, somebody who writes for the local newspaper. Well, because Random House had now signed up, it meant that the New York Times could write about it. And this was the picture that they had. This is the book that everybody's reading about. Social proof, social connection. What that meant was that as soon as the New York Times wrote about it, CNN could write about it or do a story about it. So this could really get the buzz happening very, very quickly. The network effects. I've interviewed many women who will admit to me, and even privately, that they are 50 Shades of Grey readers. And it's got a very viral thing. In fact, it feels a little bit like in the United States when they release movies, they try to make as much money out of the movie on the weekend. Because some movies are terrible. And what happens though, is that if you've been queuing up to see a terrible movie, you can't go and tell your friends, don't go, it's crap. What you've got to say is, like, you've got to see it. You just trust me, you've got to see it. And so hey, your other friends go, it's a crap movie. You know, yeah, I told you. You've got to die. I've never seen anything that bad. Because you don't want to feel bad yourself. So these network effects, like women pulling other women in, you've got to read this thing. Okay, now here's a, just going to switch over. Is it audio? Can I make audio happen for me?
Probably.
Is it just going to work? Oh yeah, the HDMI. If I find the right video. This one first. And that one's
This month, celebrate 50 years.
it's coming up. Here we go, this one. Okay, so here we go. So now we're going to look at how pretty much 50 Shades of Grey managed to move from the book press into basically popular press, popular stuff. Let's have a listen to this.
This Mother's Day, why not show Mom just how special she is? By surprising her with one of millions of gifts from Amazon.com.
All right, let's be quiet. Mom has no idea we're bringing her breakfast in bed, okay? Shh.
Which means there's a million ways to give your mother a surprise she'll never forget.
Happy Mother's Day! 50 Shades of Grey. Isn't that sex book?
What? No, go outside.
Look, a microphone. Mommy!
Because with Amazon, a million surprises for Mom are just a click away.
Surprise!
Get the out of here!
Is that 50 Shades of Grey?
No, it's a cookbook.
Mom, we got you bad stuff.
Yeah, I see that, Jonah. Thank you. You can just put it down over there.
On Amazon.com, Mommy surprises come in all sizes.
Happy Mother's Day.
Oh, 50 Shades of Grey.
Get out.
Is that Joe McHale?
No, it's your dad. Get out!
So this Mother's Day, go to Amazon.com and get Mom what she really wants. 50 Shades of Grey on Kindle.
All right, come on, get next to the kids. I want to get a picture. Ready? 1, 2, yay!
The Kindle. What are you reading, Mom? We'll never know.
So clearly, just like, I don't know if Uber is here, but people Uber things, they Google things. What 50 Shades of Grey did is that they managed to jump into the popular press, which meant that everybody was allowed to write about it, make jokes about it, talk about it, say that it's bad, say that it's great. So it was a huge then spread of like catching the wave and riding the wave. Let's get back to this. And it's quite fun as well. Then there was the movie. The movie is a good example of riding the wave. So the movie came out, it was announced that it would be out. She did the perfect plan, but she didn't do it on purpose. So, I mean, with faced with like a bad option and a good option, she took pretty much the only option she could do, which wasn't a stupid thing. And what I really look at for sort of startups such as yourselves, or even established businesses ready to scale, is how can we take advantage of some of these rules to actually design scaling plans. And I'll give you just a quick example of a project that I'm working on now. Do I have enough time for a little video? I'll show you another little video thing. You can do this thing. And it won't be anything to do with 50 Shades of Grey. Okay, teacher prize.
The nominations are now open for the Varkey Gems Foundation Global Teacher Prize 2014.
So this is a project I've been helping to scale. So we'll have a look at the videos. The Nobel Prize for Teaching.
Congratulations on being selected as the top 50 of Global Teacher
When I first heard about being selected in the top 50, I was stunned. Not only for being recognized for my work, but also to be in the company of some of the best teachers on the planet.
Ci sono due professori italiani tra i 50 più bravi del mondo.
Najdobri nastavnici vo svetot organiziran od Fondasiyeta Varkey James.
Hörmətli tamaşaçılar, Dünya Müəllimi mükafatının 50 namizədi arasında
Congratulations, Kiran ma'am. To my education, what you have done is something very phenomenal. You have given me confidence. You've given me confidence to know more, to face the world. And today, whatever I am, whatever I've selected as a career, it's all because of you.
Hoş geldin. Evet, gururumuz. Tekrar hoş geldin. Büyük alkışlarla yerine al. Şöyle gel. Aramızda olsun.
Teacher from Middlesbrough College is one of the top 10 teachers in the whole world.
Richard Spencer being nominated for the world's most prestigious teaching award.
Naomi Volan, who works at Springfield Central High,
One of the 10 finalists for a $1 million international prize.
Sarah Aziz is in the final 10 of the Global Teacher Prize.
Teacher Stephen Ritz of Public School 55 in the Bronx is
receiving international attention. He is a finalist for a Global Teacher Prize.
I would take your class in a heartbeat. I mean, how do you keep that enthusiasm going?
I'm just going to pause this here. So this is a design prize. I'm a consultant to the prize. When the prize was first announced, it was announced in Dubai, and it was a big show. We're going to give $1 million to the world's best teacher. Can anybody see any problems with that?
Yeah. Teachers gonna, yeah. They're gonna stop teaching.
They would stop teaching? Yeah.
Yeah, because of students, you're like best student.
Yeah, and you think you have a chance of winning it? Really?
I will try my best. I will try my best.
And actually, the first thought that went through my head is that if the world's best teacher wins it, they're going to leave teaching. Even if the teacher wants it, their spouse is going to say, no, you're not going to spend the money on other stuff here. Family first, like furs and stuff like that, car, drive, things. And even if they still stay in teaching, they buy Ferrari, Porsche, whatever kind of stuff. So, pretty much, we then sat back and then we designed the prize. So let's look at some of the elements of this. To find the world's best teacher, we realized that teacher prizes already exist. So what we did then is that we pretty much then found people that run teaching prizes in all the countries in the world to say, please get your best teachers to come here. You notice there was a picture with the Pope?
Yeah.
So we hooked up the Pope. I did like an Ocean's 11 thing with the Pope. So I was in the Vatican with the Pope as well. My picture just wasn't important enough to be on this. But why is that? Well, that's because everybody knows the Pope. People don't know the teacher prize. By doing a project with the Pope's education non-profit, we met the Pope and did some work for him. This meant that he basically then helped also promote the prize. More people know the Pope than people know us, so it increases the odds of getting awareness. If you have a look, there were 5 men and 5 women on stage. That was on purpose. That doesn't happen by accident. In fact, what typically happens, I've found, is that men are more boastful than women, even if women are better. So a typical male applicant says, I've won this prize, and that prize, and I'm awesome. Oh, by the way, kids are important. And whereas a woman's one is completely the opposite. The reason I just sort of shared this as like a sort of quick example is that you can actually design this, and we do have time in the sort of workshop time to go through this, but we can actually go through and see how the rules can be applied to help scale up your stuff. So with that, I'll just finish off the talk segment of this by going here. And then there's a book on scaling which details the full 26 odd scaling frames, but we will actually go through for the workshop now. But with that, I'd like to say thank you very much for the talk, and hopefully we've got time for questions. But thank you very much for the talk first. Thank you. Any questions from that? Yes?
Yeah, is that a global prize for teaching? On which you based the skills, like networking, you based the
So that one, unfortunately, it's not for university teachers. Otherwise, I might win because I'm a professor as well. It's for teaching children aged between 5 and 18. So what was it?
I was talking about scaling, how scale that project. So I thought like if I were you, I would do with network, based on network, not based on crowds, power of crowd.
So actually, so when you design things, you can typically, there are 26 scaling frames. A good plan will have 6 frames, or 7 frames that you're using. So in this one we use networks, because the networks give us into teachers' unions, teaching schools, and teacher prizes. Pre-existing networks. But then the power of the crowd is quite handy, because then this is why we make these nice videos where people can see the videos and they want to cry, isn't my teacher awesome, and it gets 1 million views on YouTube. So we're trying to, in that case, use both. We didn't have the crowd vote, at least not in the first year. We'll have some more crowd voting later on. But it's the kind of thing that, another thing when you build a plan is you don't have to do everything in the first year. This is actually built on a 5-year plan. So this was just the first year. We have to make it very successful, get a good group of like finalists so that people say, yep, we trust the prize, and then we can do more with it year after year. Yeah. Cool. Any other questions? Yeah.
Yes. Some of the activities you mentioned, like creating a video or networking, a lot of them can be like can happen regarding marketing. How can we make sure that the activities we do are actually scaling our business up instead of just like covering the groups we already have interested in?
So the best way of building a scaling plan is start with your end goal. What do I really want 1 year out, 2 years out, 3 years out? And then for all of your businesses, you will have key metrics that drive your business. So let's say you might have one metric which is visitors, and another metric is sign-ups, and another metric is premium users. And then a final metric is money. So now these are the only metrics that actually define the business. Everything else, all of the activities you do support that. It's quite good then to sit down and say, okay, if I make this video, I think this video will help me boost visitors. If you're sort of new in this thing, what I thoroughly recommend you should do for any new activity you come up with that you think is going to work, before you roll it out, write down what you expect is going to happen. This is probably one of the best ways you can accelerate your learning. So let's say that you make a video for your thing, and you say, we're going to get 100,000 people looking at this video. And my assumption is that we'll get 100,000 because it's really cool, and because everybody will see it, and everybody will share it with everybody within 2 weeks. So write down your assumptions, and you're not wrong until it happens. Now we look, whatever, as soon as it comes out, and let's say it's got 500 views. Well now, if the delta is that big, you have to fundamentally question your assumptions. Now, I'm doing another project with this, the viral video. It's called Share the Meal, and this is a UN World Food Programme incubated project for, you can donate money for feeding children off your mobile phone. So they've created international videos and local videos, and their goal is to hit 1 million downloads by the end of this year, and therefore they're extremely obsessed on number of downloads. No other metric actually counts. So then even if the video was viral and you got lots of stuff, if it doesn't deliver downloads, then it's failed. So it basically forces a discipline into your business. Does that help?
Yeah, it helps. It's just like we can have like a local marketing plan, and all we need to do is increase the numbers we expect. That doesn't.
Not necessarily. So now it goes into how much of a stretch your plan is. So typically, when you do a scaling, when you design a scaling plan, you need to do your end goal twice. The first end goal is you say, okay, I want to get 100,000 people. Then you work out your scaling plan. And then after you make your scaling plan, you go back to say, is 100,000 people actually very easy? Maybe I need to have a more ambitious plan. But I think, if you look at typical challenges you have if you're in a region, let's say from here, is how do you get into the United States? How do you get into the United Kingdom? So then, if you want to get numbers, go to India. I mean, that's if you want to get 1 million people downloading your stuff, India. That's the. Now, I've got friends that have had business models that have been destroyed because somebody inside the business focused on visitors rather than users. And they ended up with too many people that were Indian subscribers who had no money. So then, I think this is part of the problem about, let's say, viral videos, viral marketing, is that it's much sexier than the normal stuff, which is how do you convert people and get a credit card? But that's where the money comes in. I think also, I would imagine that, so I live in Germany, and German startups have to make cash. Otherwise, they don't get investment. So unless you can really show that there's cash going to come in, you can't get investment. Silicon Valley, it doesn't matter to me. Like, just ignore the camera. So I don't know what type of, maybe your investor community is not mature enough here to decide who they are. But you're probably going to have people wanting more cash than vision.
Thank you.
Yeah, great. Any other questions? Yeah.
How do you evaluate the teachers? Like, how do you decide somebody is the best teachers? Aren't we like all somehow biased because everyone like thinks? I mean, I was exposed to my teachers only, and I personally believe maybe that my teacher is the best. And you get like a bit, okay, not a billion, but one. Okay, I don't know. There are, let's say, assume 200 countries, and they tell you like from each country, my teacher is the best teacher. How do you decide at the end who's really the best teacher?
We just shove the names into a hat and just pick one. No, I did not know this was important. No, that's not true.
You will.
It's an interesting challenge. I designed the system to evaluate. So we already had some criteria. So you must be innovative in the classroom and be able to demonstrate it. You must be excellent and demonstrate it. You must have great student outcomes, so examination, pass rates, things like that. But then you need to demonstrate that you're active in your local community and that you're active in promoting the teaching profession. So this is more than just being a good teacher. This is really hard. Still though, we had 5,000 applicants last year in 8 different languages. And we had about 4 weeks to review them all. I have a background in building some sort of neural network type systems. So we built an artificial intelligence system to automatically evaluate the likelihood of a teacher being good or bad. So like a magic algorithm. What happens then is that some people are so obviously good because they say, won Obama Teaching Prize 2050. Okay, if you won that, that's good. Some people say, I would really like to buy a boat, and teaching is important. So that then meant the first pass is done by a computer, and the computer is then tuned by humans. The next stage is that we have master judges and volunteers from around the world. We have 35 master judges and volunteers from India, from Africa, from Latin America, to get a feel for the local teaching thing. And they had a scoring criteria they had to go through. From there, we then had a decision to pick the top 50. We have a quota for geographic balance, regional balance, so we're trying to make sure that we reflect. Think about how hard it is comparing, let's say, a science teacher from here, working in with whatever iPads and whatever, right next to the university, with somebody in rural Tanzania, or the teacher in Turkey that is in a one-person school. So we want to compare these different teaching situations and different language. So yeah, in fact, the top 50 will be announced next week. If you have a Facebook group, I'll share it with you and you can push it out. So it's good. Yes.
Okay, let's assume that we have a product or some business that we want to set in motion, like scale it out as much as we can. You said earlier that there are, I guess, 26 different ways how to scale out something, right? And there are 6 options that you use in these cases. If we use initially a few of those frameworks or options of scaling out, when do we know when to stop with one option, continue with another one, when we are overdoing it with the viral videos or anything like that? When should we focus on different methods of scaling out and how to do that?
So that's a good question. So for those people that didn't hear the question, so if you've got let's say a couple of scaling factors that are working, when should you start to be looking at the other scaling factors?
Yeah.
I think
I want to know when to stop and continue with another one, then switch on to another one. Just like to keep the crowd scaling out and not stop at any point.
Well, so I think that there are a few things. So there's one general problem, which is that anything that worked last year will stop working this year. Now, the reason why they stop working is that many methods are successful because they're novel. Because they're novel, quite often they get picked up in the press. Because they're in the press, you find out about them, which means that everybody copies it, and it stops being novel, and it stops working. So what it means then is that you can't rely on, let's say if I was, so I've worked at the conceptual level rather than, so if we're talking about like, here's a Google search keyword optimization technique from whatever, February 2014, it's not going to be worth that either. So now it goes into, if you're let's say if you're a founder of your business, I recommend that you should spend at least a couple of hours doing strategy work every month. And book it in your calendar just in case you forget. Because it's very easy to go for 3 months without thinking about strategy. In my case then, every quarter I would have a different thing that I would focus on. So I'm going to focus on sales now. Next month I'm going to look at internal operations. Next month I'm going to look at marketing. So you sort of keep refreshing what you're doing. I like to have key metrics. So like, what are the things that drive our business? You make your prediction in advance so you can see the delta. Now, if it's working, unless we can see signs that it's going to stop working, you just keep doing it and doing it. So it would be a bad. So let's say you make some really great viral videos for your thing, and every viral video you get 20% more people. Keep doing it
until it stops.
Until it stops, and then you have to have. So you keep doing that. I mean, they might never stop. I mean, who knows? But at the same time, then, because you have your strategy time, you're looking to say, okay, if you had one thing that is really working, then you might think, well, can I get this thing that's working to do something else as well? So if you look at, let's say, viral videos, most of the problem with the viral videos, you can get the eyeballs, but you don't get anything else. So now you might then think, if you watch this video, maybe I can embed a sign up button into the YouTube video and persuade people to click on it, because then I can get conversion into our website and. So then, even if you've got one thing that's working, you can see we kind of get it to drive something else as well. But the best companies are constantly innovating. So just because you're doing something that works, you don't just sort of sell up. I mean, you can have your company sold, that's fine. By the way, if somebody makes you a good offer, take it. Because you can always do another business afterwards.
So, my question is somewhat similar to the previous one. So, for example, let's say that I've started a small company, it's modestly successful, I'm getting some traction, I'm growing organically, and I'm at a point where it's self-sustainable. So it's pretty much working smoothly. At what point should I pool additional resources, significant resources, into scaling up?
So for me then, it always goes to the end goal. So now let's imagine I'm going to be two versions of you. I'm going to be comfortable you and ambitious you. Comfortable you says 4,000 euros a month. It's good. Cushy. It's great. Brilliant. It's never less. It's never more. It's a perfect, nice, stable business. In that case, don't spend money scaling. Then there's ambitious you that says, well, if I can make 4,000 a month and it was that easy, I'm going to go for 10. My next level is 10. Then quite quickly you begin to think, well, okay, can I scale up to 10,000 with the same things that I'm doing now? And maybe you can actually scale to 6 by doing the same things. Well, now already ambitious you is laughing in the face of comfortable you. Because comfortable you didn't even bother looking, because he was fine, he was happy. The other one has just made an extra $2,000 a month. You could get a rent BMW for that. Lease it. So then now you've got to look at the gap. So now you look at, to get the extra 4,000, now that we've got 6, how much, where do I need to hire? Now there's going to be a challenge about timing of cash flow, because sometimes you need to employ people before you've got the money coming in. So then, and if you believe that the business is decent, I mean, I don't know what the situation is for seed funding, startup funding here in this region, but then
non-existent
funding. Whereas the kind of thing that put 10,000 euros down here, you've never seen this much money, and everybody like hits each other like Black Friday. Well, so I'm at the Pioneers of the Balkans. So the World Bank funded a project, Pioneers of the Balkans. So they're doing the culmination of that in Zagreb this week, which is part of the reason for my road trip. I can see that there will be more stuff coming in. So for the people that have got the incubators, and this is the kind of thing that your ecosystem needs to develop. I mean, you need to have advisors that know what they're doing, which means tax, accounting, legal. You need to have banks that understand what a startup is. What I would suggest you do if you don't have a bank that does that here is you group as a group of entrepreneurs, pick one bank that you think is going to work and lobby one bank. And drive all of your business to that one bank. Because there's no point trying to persuade the other banks to do it. There's not enough money from the startups to make all the banks say, we want your business. But that's what has been done in Latvia and other places as well. So lobby for the banks. But then it'll be, I mean, there are regional investors. You kind of need to persuade somebody to say, okay, you're in Zagreb. How about we do a little trip down to come and visit the ecosystem down here? So I'm sort of, I feel like part of the sort of traveling roadshow. And how do you, it's one of the ways that Silicon Valley is becoming more and more to Europe is that first of all, there are some great companies. But secondly, a lot of the Silicon Valley people like to have a party. So if you offer them a nice party, they'll come back. And they'll tell their friends, and their friends will come as well. But ultimately though, the thing is you have to have good quality businesses. I think it's challenging. When I look at Berlin 6 years ago, there were very few good quality businesses that were not copies of American businesses. Now there are loads of businesses that are getting substantial investment funding, which are very original, unique. There's Mimeo is a new sort of hearing app, so like sort of allows you to do whatever, improve your hearing for sort of hearing impaired people through your iPhone. There's Clue, female menstruation tracking, done really well, now raised tens of millions. And it's interesting for me because about 5 years ago I sat down with a group of students, like sort of in their mid-20s, although Germans could be students until they're like 34. And we were sharing a big bowl of pasta together, one of these really cheap sort of make your own food things. Well, now 4 of the people around the table have gone on to raise more than 5 million each. So you can do it. But yes, you need to be a little bit more ambitious, get bigger goals. But yeah, bottom. Yes?
I'll talk about myself first. I'm Egyptian, I'm not Muslim. So when I came here, I saw that Balkan, especially here, Israel was like really good place to study, like really good place. But somehow also I'm lazy, so and I have lack of creativity. So there is a guy who told me just to do any idea and do something. Just do it. And I don't know, I don't like just do it and I'm not sure. You know? Because I would work. I don't want to like get money when I'm 40. Like I want like next 5 years have good check. So what do you think? To find that idea or just do it? Like I said, no, seriously, as
That's very good. This is a very deep philosophical question. So I want to say,
that's a good question. I'm discussing.
so, sorry? If we need to have a break now. Okay, just very quickly with that, and then we'll close up the question then. So, whatever your first idea is that you work on will suck, guaranteed. Just people suck. I don't care what it is, it's going to suck. Because everybody sucks. Airbnb wasn't Airbnb. Airbnb was whatever, sofa, sleeping bag showing, and then there was successful because they had cereal boxes. Most companies begin to become successful because they get into an area, they begin to actually interact with customers, the customers interact with the technology, you then find out what they really want, and then you have to decide, do I change myself to adapt to my customers, smart way, or my customers are all idiots, don't they see what a genius I am? Not such a smart way of doing it. So, I mean, the business that I took public, I didn't start doing whatever, idea management and collaboration software. My customers basically allowed it to emerge. So many of them saying, we need this, we have this problem. And I thought, I'm trying to sell you something you don't want at a price point you're not willing to spend money on. But if I give you this, you'll spend 10 times more money than you'll spend with anybody else on this thing. And I can see 100 people wanting it. Okay, I'll build a different thing. So I think what you should do, though, is like to explore, experiment, test. Do lots of experimenting, prototyping, testing. So the best type of leader in this day and age, for me, has the attitude of being confidently humble. Clearly, as leaders, we must be confident. Otherwise, nobody will follow us. We wouldn't even follow ourselves. But we should be humble to say, let the customers decide. Let's see what comes out from the data. Well, let's do an A/B test, and if A is more than B, we'll do A. Because even though I could say it must be B, you're much better off letting the data decide. So, good. Well, okay, thank you for the questions. And we have a snack, and then I'm still around here for the snack time, and then we go to a workshop thing after that. Good. Okay, brilliant. Thank you.